Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nilsson, and my guest today is Jennifer Zumbiel. Jennifer, thank you for being with us.
Hi, Chanel. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. We lucked out. We got to talk the other day. We were trying to record, but technology was not our friend that day. And so I enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm excited for my listeners to get to know you too. So let's start out with a quick bio, and I'll introduce you to everybody. So Jennifer's been married for 15 years. She is a mother of 4, and she says she understands the threat of distractions to face-to-face communications. Because of that, she was determined to find a better way, and she created a mealtime game called Together to bring families closer together through conversation that digs deeper. So that led her into a whole brand that is all about bringing families together. And that is something that I am passionate about also, and that I feel like is so important for families to know about. So to start off with, tell us a little bit more, anything that we missed about your family, your background, and what your life is like as a mom.
We are just in that busy season of life, as so many of us are. And if we're not there yet, it is coming. So I just felt like, really, I think the heart of all our families is all about meaning. And so many of us just want to have meaningful conversations. And it's a struggle at the end of a busy day, how to get there and what to say and how to get past those one-word answers that we are all too familiar with from our children or our spouses or whatever we deliver ourselves, right? I mean, sometimes it's more comfortable to give a one-word answer. So I just felt like I could be used to just help save people from that regret of just living that busy life and all of a sudden looking back and thinking, when was the last time I had a meaningful conversation? I have a teaching background. I taught high school for 8 years. And so I like that connection. I like digging deeper. I like trying to get teenagers in particular to open up. I don't have any yet, but I dealt with that for 8 years. So I just think that's a way. If you do it the right way, you can reach people on a different level if you ask the right questions and you do it in an engaging way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for me, that's one reason I really enjoy podcasting is because I like meeting people and I love talking to people, but sometimes it's so easy to stay on the surface with your conversations. When I go out and you're talking to other moms at school or at church or whatever, it's easy to just talk about, oh, your outfit's so cute. And oh, what new thing is your little one doing? And those very surface conversations. And it can be hard sometimes to really get into the deeper stuff. And that's not just with people who we see every once in a while. That can be with our family too. We're just saying, oh, what do you want from the grocery store? And did you get your homework done? And not really understanding what's in their heart and what they're thinking about and what they're worrying about. So I think that this whole concept is very relevant and very important. So obviously, this is something that you're passionate about and you feel strongly about helping families connect. So why did you see that need, or how did you see that need that families needed to connect?
Yeah, good question. I have heard this before, that when you look back on your life and you try to think, okay, where am I meant to be? What are my gifts? How am I supposed to use them? What is my purpose? I mean, that's a huge question, but I have heard how you should follow the breadcrumbs, follow what has always just made you excited or given you that extra, step of that extra motivation in your life that you would do if you weren't getting paid or you just are called to do. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So to step back, I have a business degree. And we could do an entire podcast about how I left my sales job to go back to be a teacher. But I just felt like I had this overwhelming desire to just be used in a different way to reach these high school students. And so I went back to school to be a teacher. And with that, that was one point in my journey where I felt like, okay, I love this. I love getting to know people and really trying to reach in and get them to talk. I taught social studies, which can otherwise sometimes be a boring subject to teach. And I loved trying to teach it in a dynamic way and get these kids to open up. And if you can get them to open up about history, then, you can get them open up about a lot. But that was one kind of thing along the way where I just knew I enjoyed communicating. So then fast forward, we have children, and there were several moments when my kids were young. My first two are 18 months apart, where I just felt like, this time is going to go really fast. And if we do not connect, and if I do not get to know my children and they don't get to know me and my husband, we're going to wake up one day and think, gosh, all we did was go through the motions, because that in itself is just a fast-paced life when you're raising babies at the same time. Several young ones all at once. And so I just remember being a young mom and thinking it by myself. Some things were revealed to me and I thought, I'm going to slow down and I'm not going to regret this time. And I really tried to cherish those moments. And then I was thankfully surrounded by a lot of moms and different groups I was in that just lifted me up, gave me really great advice on how to communicate with your family and make sure you're always asking your children, for example, after play dates, how does that friend make you feel, so that you can start digging deeper with your children, even at age 3 and 4, and get them to understand their feelings and just start really basic communication skills. And then, we kept having children, and I just saw how important it was to just constantly be in active communication together and with my husband, take out the raising kids part. But, when you're married for a long time, sometimes that part of conversation gets comfortable, where it's the same old, right? We know everything about each other, it seems. And I just felt like we needed a way to dig deeper. So the aha moment for me was we were out at a restaurant in spring of 2016. And I was just looking around and I just thought, gosh, we are all choosing so many other things over face-to-face communication, as I looked around and, saw people on screens and things like that. And again, I don't think people want to be that way. I think it's just sometimes easier, or it's mindless. You just don't know that you're even doing it. And I remember leaving that restaurant and I said to my husband, there has got to be a better way. We're all going to fall into this trap if we're not careful, us included, because we had 4 at the time. And I just saw our lives getting busier and busier with, running our kids to different practices, not having dinners together. And I just couldn't get it off my heart. So I started to, it was like one of those constant things. I was still nursing my youngest at the time. And in the middle of the night, I'd be up with him, feeding him. And this idea of bringing meaningful conversations to families was not leaving my heart. And so over a course of a year, I developed the idea for Together as a mealtime game. I felt like, and this goes true it doesn't have to be because you're playing a mealtime game, but you have, every time we sit down with our family or friends or whomever it might be, if you sit down to eat a meal, you have a captive audience right in front of you. And that is the opportunity to just make really good conversation happen. And it will happen, but you have to do it the right way. So what is the right way? Well, of course, playing together is a good way. But the point of that was just that if you can ask the questions that don't lead to one-word answers and you can get more conversation out of them, then you can have these fulfilling moments where even if you just talk for 15 minutes, it feels like your time is multiplied. And I just feel like our world is pretty desperate for that, actually, because of just everything that's vying for our attention. And I can give some tips that I would say if you're not, if you don't have this game at your table, what are some other really good strategies for getting your family to open up?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think, you need those strategies in place to kind of be able to open up. Because even if, I think we hear this a lot, like, oh, family dinner is so important, and that's something we need to try to do and try to have in our families. And yet sometimes we get there and then don't know how to use that time the best. So talk to us about some strategies.
Yes. Okay. Let me mention something that you just said. Even when we get our family together, we don't know how to use that time best. And I will add, sometimes we may only be able to get our entire family together 1 or 2 meals a week. So that time is even more important to use it wisely, right? Because you might have to be running people to practices and games, and that might simply be because you have a lot of children or whatever, or someone's working late that week or whatever. So I think a couple really good strategies to put into place. If you were to say, like, what are your top 3 things you should do to get engaging conversation at the table? The first thing I would say is everyone sits down and eats together and all devices are turned off. The TV's turned off, the phone's turned off. It seems simple, but I don't think it happens as often as we think, because it might be on in the background, or someone was in the middle of something and carried their phone to the table, or whatever it might be. I think that sounds basic, but I think everyone sits down at the table together and they don't start eating until everyone eats together, even the little children. So I know sometimes we all serve them first because it's easier, they're hungry, or it keeps them from getting frustrated quicker into the meal or whatever it might be. But that would be first thing. The second one is keep the conversation positive at the table and really try hard. I think if you want to set really good examples of how conversation will go in your family, again, I'm going to go back to that meal. That meal time should be it. We can all think of really good memories in our lives where we had great conversation, great moments growing up with friends. And I bet, the majority of that is around a meal, just because that's where you're all gathered together and that's what you remember. And I think we owe that to our families to create those moments where they know they can come to that table and it feels refreshing. And if they feel loved, they feel supported, they feel like they can open up, and that they're not going to get a negative conversation over the meal. So, save those talks about school or household chores or financial stuff or whatever it might be. Save it for when the meal is over and you step away from that dinner table. I think that's just a really important thing to bring to your family meals. And then the third thing I would say is have a couple tools in your belt for getting open-ended conversation to happen. And I'll give you a couple tips. The first one would be to use phrases that don't give one-word answers naturally. So tell me about. So tell me about how you felt when you sat down at your test today. Tell me about what it was like to go to, the soccer tryout and see new people you didn't know. Tell me about for your spouse. Tell me about that presentation you got to give today. And then just stop. Let them just talk and add some feelings in. Another way to drive that conversation to make sure that they want to open up, I think, is to start with a compliment. So go back to the school thing. Gosh, Anna, I have seen you studying so hard for that science test this week. Tell me how it made you feel when you sat down and started taking it today. And so you all of a sudden, fluff their feathers and make them want to talk about that. And then another tip I think always helps is to come with a quote. Maybe it's a quote that hangs in your house. Maybe it's one you've seen on social media recently or you read in a book, and just share it at the dinner table. I'll give you an example. So we have one that hangs in our house that says, do what is right, not what is easy. So I could simply say, hey guys, we have that sign hanging by our garage door. It's the last thing we see actually in our house before we leave our home. We haven't really talked about that so much. What do you guys think of that sign? Tell me what that means to you. And then it will open a discussion. And of course, you can plant those comments or plant those quotes if it's a subject that you really want to talk about, I think.
Yeah. So, okay. I like this idea of kind of planning it ahead of time, with the quote and having this in mind. And I think that while in some ways that can feel a little bit, like, oh, I have something to do, an extra thing to do on my plate. On the other hand, it just allows you to be really intentional about what you want for this meal and about what you want for your family and what kind of discussion you're trying to cultivate. I know, sometimes our family dinner conversation is great. And sometimes there'll be arguing or, he did this and he did this. And that's not what we want to talk about when we're sitting around the family dinner table. And so I love the idea of having something just a little more elevated to discuss and a little, something that we can actually talk about and, throw ideas around. And that's a lot of fun. Now, I don't think that a lot of families are doing this on the regular. Why would you say that is? Why are families missing these moments to connect?
I actually, one thing I do is try to reach out to my customers and find out what they think our products solve for them. So, you know what? I didn't really say real quick what Together actually is. It's a game in the form of a book with fold-out sticker pages, and you peel a sticker from a category, and it just has a conversation prompt on it. So you pass it around, and that's how you talk. I don't think I even mentioned that. So I think why people have a hard time is they get to the end of the day. Here's what I'm hearing. And they want to have these meaningful conversations, and so much of the pressure comes on us moms, and that's just how it is, whether we are a full-time stay-at-home mom, a full-time working mother, a part-time, whatever it is, we get to the end of the day, and we are the ones that have to typically cultivate the conversation and try to make it happen. And I just think we are all so exhausted, and it doesn't mean we don't want to do that. I think that is what every family desires at their table. I just think that everybody is so tired, they're stressed, and a lot of people are thinking of their next move after dinner, right? Because typically you have to be somewhere, you got to do homework, you got to do this. And I think that our worlds are just so fast paced, and we're not sitting down and taking time to really set the stage of what those family meals look like. Again, it doesn't have to be 5 times a week. I just think when we do it, we have to be intentional with how it happens and, the respect that we give each other and the attention we give each other. I would add, this just made me think of that the side conversations at the table, I think, make it difficult for everyone to feel involved too. So if you can be intentional about having everyone involved, that really helps, instead of like me and my husband having a conversation about his work for the day while the kids are talking. I think we need to include them in different things.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Now, I'd love to hear some real life examples from the Zumbiel family of things that you talk about, some good conversations, a few meaningful dinner time conversations that you've had that stand out to you.
Oh, I love that question. Thanks for asking that. So actually last night, on social media, I put up a Dr. Seuss quote because we are recording this in March and it's Dr. Seuss's birthday this month. And I said to my girls, did you see the quote on the chalkboard? Because I had written it on our chalkboard, and it was, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And we talked about that. And I said, what does that mean? And we just, it led to a really good conversation about, helping people in different areas in our community. And if they are struggling, even at school, within our family, we talked about how it doesn't mean the world, as big as it is, our world can just be our friends at school or our family within our home. And that's what we need to always work to get better at. And that led to a really good conversation. One of our sticker categories is called Things That Make Me Go. And there's 15 stickers, and they're all shaped like your regular circles, and they all have a different phrase on them. So you peel it, you pass it around, and then when it's your turn, you say, what today made me say that phrase? And so one might say, how amazing, that was wonderful, you've got to be kidding me. And one of them says, that's crazy. And I'll never forget that it was just a really great conversation we had where my daughter had been at a friend's house that day, and they were doing something, and Big Brother was there, and this is going to come off bad, but she was doing something that was uncomfortable. He wasn't doing anything bad. She was just like, it was something scary, or they were watching something scary. And she said she didn't know how to get out of that situation. She thought that was crazy that she had to be in there. And it led to this really, really great conversation, probably 25 minutes worth, where we all just discussed, okay, let's talk about this. What happens when you are in a situation that's uncomfortable? And she's 9, or she was 9 at the time. So we talked about ways to get out of uncomfortable situations, how we would always help them, and like kind of a code word if they caught us and things like that. And it was just a very valuable moment in our family to really connect and be united in something that we all believed in. We have a whole category that's called warm and fuzzies. And you peel a sticker and you get to compliment people and tell them things you admire about them and things like that. And this is silly, but my husband I think he's so funny and he's hilarious, and he brings a whole lot of laughter to our home. And one of my children got the one that said, tell the oldest person a character trait you hope to emulate one day. And my daughter said, I love how you always do funny voices and all my friends love you. And I hope I'm like that one day. And that's just cute. It was a nice moment. It was my 7-year-old saying it. And this is funny. She actually brought him into her classroom for, how you get to bring your parents in, the kids get to have them read. She said, Dad, this is my first grader, I want you to come in and read a book to my class, but you have to speak in a British accent the whole time. And that seriously happened. And we had seen her teacher at a school event like the week before, and Matt walked up to her and said, hey, I just want to let you know, because he had not met her really very much, and said, Julia's having me come in to do this reading next week. And I'm going to speak British the whole time. I do not speak British, or I don't have a British accent, whatever. And it was really cute though. But my kids love that, and those are just moments that have been created around our table that maybe we would talk about those anyway. I'm sure we would at some point. But if the sticker makes you say it, it's a little different, even though it still feels authentic. So, and without the stickers, it just trains you to kind of go deeper naturally in your conversation.
Yeah, well, those are so fun. Thank you for sharing those, because I think that gives us a glimpse into what is possible, and what we can really use our dinner time for. And another thought that's been going through my mind as you have been talking is, we want to have these conversations with our kids. We want, when they're in a tricky situation, we want for them to tell us, or when we are, reading scripture, we want them to ask questions, or when things are hard at school or with friends, we want to be the person that they come to. And when we set up this atmosphere and this environment intentionally through mealtime, where we're having those conversations and where they know we're listening to them, we value what they say, and, we are going to talk about even the hard things, then it becomes this place of safety, and we become that safety for them. And then they're going to just naturally share those things, whether it happens at the dinner table or separately. We're setting up that environment. And I think that's so powerful with this conversation, is that that's really what you're doing. You're creating an atmosphere where the kids feel comfortable coming to you. And if you are, not having family dinner, or you're watching TV at dinner time, you're just missing out on an opportunity. And it's not to say that, like you've been saying, it's not to say it has to happen every night, but when we can take advantage of that opportunity, we're just building that support for our kids.
Absolutely. Chanel, I love what you said, how it becomes a place of safety. I think that our world today is scary for us adults. I can't imagine what it feels like as a child. And communication is just a strong communication. Strong communication is the foundation of any relationship, and especially families. And when that is unstable, it's going to crumble. It just is. Our logo is a green heart ampersand, and it's always green because if you crack a branch on a tree that you think might be dead, if there's a green heart in the middle, it will survive. And I think it is absolutely the same with meaningful communication that connects people in a relationship. If you have that, you will survive and you will stay strong. And that is really our hope for Together Moments. I want people, if you are following us on social media, I want you to feel like you have tools that you can apply to your life, whether you have our products in your hand or not, because that is exactly it. Our family, our friends, they need to be able to come to us and have that conversation where they feel safe and people are listening to them, because so many people are just craving that today.
Yes. Okay. I love that. Tell people where they can find you.
Yes, we are at Together Moments on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And togethermoments.com is our website. And if you want to get a free category sampler of our stickers, you can go to togethermoments.com/try, and you can get a download right away.
Awesome. Okay. I will link to all of that. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really just love being able to reach out and share this mission with your followers.
Yes, I think this has been a valuable conversation and a good reminder for all of us to just, make the most of those moments and to build that communication. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. I hope you enjoyed that episode and it got you thinking about things that you want to talk about with your kids. The podcast discussion question for this week is, what questions do you ask your kids? I would love to hear just things that you ask your kids that get really great discussions going. Maybe things that you ask them when they get home from school, maybe things you ask around the dinner table or in the evenings when you're tucking them in bed. What are some meaningful questions that you ask your children? Let me know at Moms Who Know Podcast on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll see you guys next week on the Moms Who Know Podcast.